This is your Acharya sir, and today we are going to discuss the singing lesson, and the mode of discussion or the way of analyzing the story is the same, that is because answers or reasoning questions or complete the sentence. Come, let us go straightway into the discussion. Question number 1. In the singing lesson, elements of plot and setting have not been dominant features because Katherine Mansfield tries to explore the multiplicity of emotional upheavals and complex interiority of Miss Meadows' mind along the stream of consciousness. Question 2. Miss Meadows doesn't like to be greeted by the science mistress because she is hypocritical, has about her a kind of affected sweetness, but above all, Miss Meadows is distressed at heart. Question 3. One would not have been surprised to see a bee caught in the tangles of the science mistress's yellow hair because she pretends to be sweet to such an amazing proportion as to allure bees. Question 4. Schoolgirls are bubbling over with gleeful excitement because running to school on a fine autumn morning is contagious. Question 5. Miss Meadows comes to school hugging a wicked knife deep in her heart because Basil, her fiancé, has dismissed their engagement. Question 6. When the science mistress mockingly remarks Miss Meadows looked frozen, she becomes worried because she thinks perhaps the inner turmoil within herself has not escaped the science mistress's attention. Question 7. Girls might think Maddie is in wax, that is upset, but she cares a little for that because she is bleeding to death, pierced to the heart by the Basil's letter disowning their engagement. Question 8. Basil has called off their engagement because he has come to the conclusion that he is not a marrying man and the idea of settling down fills him with regret. Question 9. Mary Beasley, Mrs. Meadows' favorite, was horrified because Mary didn't return her greetings, ignored the customary acceptance of chrysanthemum, but spoke in a voice of ice to start the lesson. Question 10. Tears stood in Mary Beasley's eyes, and moment staggered for her because Meadow ignored her greetings, did not accept the chrysanthemum, but spoke in a voice of ice. Answer may be the same, but the pattern of asking the question is something different. Question 11. Miss Meadows purposely selected a lament to be sung in the class because she is not in a happy mood and the song reflects her inner turmoil and agony. Question 12. Miss Meadows has smiled at the idea of a hall stand with a carved owl holding 3 hat brushes in its claws because Basil is so like a man in matter of domestic necessities to think one needed 3 hat brushes. Question 13. Basil cannot refuse the headmistress's wife who keeps on asking him to dinner because it's difficult for a man in his position to be unpopular. Question 14. In the singing lesson, winter serves as a symbol because it stands for despair in Meadows' mind and in the nature outside, barrenness envisaged in bare willow trees and withered roses. Question 15. The first song in the singing lesson is very much tragic because every note was a sigh, a sob, a groan of awful mournfulness. Question 16. Katherine Mansfield makes Meadows take the Song of Lament in whole first, then in fragments, without emotion first, and later with utmost anguish, because an outward shock dents in this fashion upon human consciousness. Question 17. Mary Beasley on the music stool wriggled her spine because Miss Meadows uttered the sound drear awfully in 2 syllables. Question 18. The engagement of Basil with Miss Meadows has been a miracle because a man of 25 got affianced to a woman of 30. Question 19. Miss Meadows thought that Basil didn't love her because he had not cared enough to scratch out the word disgust and kept it in such a way she could make out the word and thus felt wounded. Question 20. The way of striking out the word disgust and replacing it with a regret hurts Miss Meadows because Basil has no concern to hurt her sentiment, as she could very well make out the discarded word struck out so lightly. Question 21. While Miss Meadows is away from the class, the girls are so much subdued as to make any noise because they are spent up singing the emotional outburst of lamentation, and some are even blowing their noses. Question 22. Miss White, the headmistress, was hesitant to hand over the telegram to Miss Meadows because it could have been something serious. Question 23. Miss Meadows' hand flew out to receive the telegram because she was worried that Basil might have committed suicide. Question 24. Miss Meadows could not take her eyes off the telegram because Basil had put an end to all the misgivings by saying not to pay any attention to the letter, and he must have been mad to write a letter as such. Question 25. Miss Meadows laughed apologetically to the headmistress because the content of the telegram was nothing serious but a loving one. Question 26. While Miss Meadows was leaving Mistress's room, Miss White stopped her because she wanted to remind her that she didn't approve of her teachers having telegram sent to them in school hours unless it was a serious one. Question 27. At the end of the story, the shift of Miss Meadows' mental horizon is clearly evident because she flew on the wings of hope, love and joy, picked the yellow chrysanthemum, ignored at the beginning, and started singing a song warm, joyful and eager. This is the last one, question 28. Disjointed statements. Seesaw movement from outer world to inner world and spontaneous shuffling across present, past and future are extensively used in the singing lesson because Katherine Mansfield is a modernist short story writer following the convention of stream of consciousness novel. That's all for today, and we would meet with yet another lesson in the next session. Thank you all.